Welcome back to Politics Nation. Folks, remember in 1998 when Hillary Clinton said there was a vast right-wing conspiracy? People ridiculed her for being dramatic. Well, it's 14 years later, and maybe her claim wasn't so ridiculous. Here's a story we need to talk about. Since it passed in Florida in 2005, Stand Your Ground has become law in 25 states. It removed any duty to retreat and gave a person the right to kill somebody if they felt threatened. The controversial law became a national debate when the Trayvon Martin case became the biggest story in the country. The Florida law says, quote, a person who is attacked has no duty to retreat and has the right to stand his or her ground and meet force with force. Pretty powerful language, but not unique to Florida. Here's Georgia. A person who is attacked has no duty to retreat and has a right to meet force with force. South Carolina, no duty to retreat and has the right to stand his ground and meet force with force. Michigan, a person may use deadly force with no duty to retreat. 25 bills use the same language. Folks, this is no accident. This is Florida Governor Jeb Bush signing the first Stand Your Ground law in 2005. The woman next to him is Marion Hammer, former NRA president and powerful lobbyist. After the bill was signed, Ms. Hammer approached the corporate-backed American Legislative Exchange Council, known as ALEC, and asked them to adopt Florida's law as a model bill. The law was approved unanimously. It became a template that ALEC and the NRA pressed and pushed across the country. A vast right-wing conspiracy? Folks, there are powerful groups at work here, and it's time to do something about it. Joining me now is Adam Weinstein, National Securities Editor for Mother Jones. Adam wrote a new article on how ALEC and the NRA helped spread Stand Your Ground. And Lisa Graves, the Executive Director of Center for Media and Democracy, a group fighting the laws. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you,
Adam, let me start with you. How close is the relationship between the NRA and ALEC?
Well, Al, what we found as we started doing some research down here in Florida is actually they're thick as thieves and there's blood ties. Down here, you won't find the NRA. What you'll find technically is called Unified Sportsmen of America, or Unified Sportsmen of Florida. That's Marion Hammer's organization that she's run for the NRA since the 1970s. And on the board is one John Petronas. He's a member of a pretty powerful, influential family down here in Florida. And his cousin is one Jimmy Petronas. He's a representative in Florida's legislature. He also just happens to be ALEC's executive director down here, the guy who figures out what's the model legislation and what's on the agenda for ALEC to push across the country. And so you can see that these relationships have been pretty deep for quite some time down here.
Now, Lisa, you and others are fighting, and many of us in the civil rights community, me included, have asked corporations to look at what ALEC has done here. They've had Stand Your Ground as a model bill, which, quote, based upon Florida legislation enacted April 16, 2005. So when we say a model bill, they actually took this bill around the country as the template for other states to really duplicate this and pass legislation.
That's right. ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, is a group that calls itself the largest group of independent legislators in the country. But in fact, 98% of its funding comes from corporations and foundations, from everything but legislative dues. And when that bill came to ALEC in 2005, after it passed the Florida legislature, the NRA brought that bill to a closed-door meeting in Grapevine, Texas, where that meeting was co-chaired by Walmart, and other corporations and corporate lobbyists were present. Other legislators were present, and it was adopted unanimously as a national model. After that time, ALEC extolled that bill as a model bill. It counted it in its voter scorecards, its state scorecards, and it talked on NRA radio about how close its ties were to the NRA. In fact, after that happened, the NRA became the co-chair of that task force for ALEC, and at the same time, Walmart became the co-chair, the corporate co-chair for the state of Florida.
And now many of those corporations, some of which you named, some of us approached them, and some of them have withdrawn. I believe 22 corporations and over 50 legislators have dropped ALEC as sponsored and have really actually began hurting ALEC with their withdrawal. But when you talk about the NRA, let me go back to you, Adam. You yourself have had family members that were years ago members of the NRA, and you argue the NRA today is not the NRA of your father or grandfather's time.
That's absolutely right, Al. I'm a third-generation gun owner. I actually have a concealed weapons permit here in the state of Florida. I had it for more than a decade now, and you can imagine the laws have changed pretty significantly. I'm kind of taken aback by the liberties that I'm allowed now that I didn't have a decade ago. And part of that is because of the NRA and its influence and the way that the NRA has changed. When Marion Hammer, who's the lobbyist down here, who's responsible for Stand Your Ground, she took over the NRA nationally in the 90s. Before that, it was largely a sportsman's organization. It was the organization that my grandfather was a member of. And it was about gun education. It was about hunting. And now it represents corporate interests. $39 million, that's the amount of money that corporations like Beretta and Colt and Remington are pouring into the NRA to represent their interests, along with a host of other right-wing kind of extreme views that the NRA is pushing. They're as likely to talk about immigration or gay marriage as they are about gun rights these days.
So it's no longer about sportsmen, it's about corporation and very serious political issues. Lisa, let me ask you, because we're going to run out of time. They're hurting ALEC. What's next, though? They clearly have voter ID and other things that they're representing.
Well, that's right. Walmart did drop out of ALEC about a week ago, along with the other corporations that you mentioned. And my organization, the Center for Media Democracy and Color of Change, Common Cause, and others are working to highlight corporations like Johnson & Johnson, Koch Industries that are standing by ALEC, standing by its agenda. And its agenda includes efforts to make it much more difficult for American citizens to vote, efforts to make it hard for you to sue if you take a drug that was approved by the FDA and your child is killed or your spouse dies as a result of it. Their agenda, they claim, is just a jobs agenda. It's actually really a corporate agenda to make it more difficult and put their thumb on the scale of justice in virtually every area of the law. And that's why we're working to expose ALEC through ALEC Exposed and through other means. We're
going to stay on this, and we're going to have you back to talk about this even more. And Adam, good article. Adam Weinstein and Lisa Graves, thanks for your time tonight. We'll be right back.